In a glass-walled corner office sat Richard Whitman, the CEO of Whitman Industries. Richard was a man in his early 50s with slicked-back silver hair and an air of authority that filled the room before he even spoke. He prided himself on being decisive and running his company with an iron fist, but today he was in no mood for patience. "What's the point of having rules if people can't follow them?" Richard muttered under his breath, glaring at the reports on his desk. His assistant, a young woman named CLA, hesitated before entering the office. "Sir, there's been a complaint about the janitorial staff," CLA said cautiously, knowing Richard's temper. "A complaint?" Richard snapped, his piercing blue eyes narrowing. "What now?" Apparently one of the janitors was seen taking an extended break in the staff lounge. "Some of the executives weren't happy about it," CLA explained, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard's face darkened. "What's his name?" "Marcus Daniels," CLA replied. "He's been with the company for a few months." "Get him in here now," Richard barked, his tone leaving no room for argument. Marcus Daniels was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 40s with a quiet demeanor and a strong work ethic. He had taken the janitorial job to stay grounded after years of working in high-pressure corporate environments. Marcus believed in humility and hard work, but he also knew when to stand his ground. When CLA approached him in the janitor's closet, Marcus wiped his hands on his work uniform and followed her to the CEO's office without hesitation. He sensed trouble but remained calm. Richard didn't bother looking up when Marcus entered the room. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." Marcus sat, his expression neutral. "You wanted to see me, sir." Richard finally looked up, his gaze cold. "Do you know why you're here?" "I assume it has something to do with my break earlier," Marcus replied evenly. Richard leaned forward, his voice sharp. "This company doesn't tolerate laziness. If you can't follow the rules, you don't belong here." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, I've never missed a shift, and I've always completed my tasks on time." Richard's patience snapped. "I don't have time for excuses. You're fired. Pack your things and leave." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stood up without a word. As he left the office, a few employees glanced his way, their faces a mix of sympathy and discomfort. Marcus's departure was swift, but the tension in the air lingered. Later that evening, Richard attended a high-profile charity gala hosted by the company's largest shareholders. The event was a glittering affair with chandeliers, champagne, and a crowd of Chicago's elite. Richard mingled confidently, unaware that his actions earlier in the day were about to come back to haunt him. As the night progressed, a hush fell over the room when the host took the stage to introduce a special guest. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of our newest and most influential shareholders, Mr. Marcus Daniels." Richard froze, his glass of whiskey halfway to his lips. The same man he had fired that morning now stood on the stage, dressed in a tailored suit and addressing the crowd with ease. Marcus's presence at the gala was commanding. His deep voice resonated through the hall as he spoke about his commitment to social equity and corporate responsibility. The audience hung on his every word, applauding enthusiastically as he concluded his speech. Richard's mind raced. How could this be the same man he had dismissed as a mere janitor? Desperate for answers, he approached Marcus after the speech. "Mr. Daniels," Richard began, his voice strained. "A word, please." Marcus turned, his expression unreadable. "Of course, Mr. Whitman. What can I do for you?" Richard struggled to maintain his composure. "I didn't realize you were a shareholder." Marcus's lips curved into a faint smile. "And I didn't realize you judged people based on their job titles." The tension between them was palpable. Marcus's demeanor only heightened Richard's discomfort. "Why were you working as a janitor?" Richard finally asked. Marcus's gaze hardened. "Because I wanted to see how this company treats its employees. And today I got my answer." Richard opened his mouth to respond, but Marcus held up a hand. "Save it. I'm not here to humiliate you, Richard. I'm here to make changes." Starting tomorrow, we're going to have a very different conversation. The next day, Marcus arrived at the office, not in a janitor's uniform but in a sharp suit. His presence sent shockwaves through the building as employees whispered and speculated about his true identity. Richard had no choice but to call an emergency meeting with the board. As they gathered in the conference room, Marcus took a seat at the head of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady, "I've spent the last few months observing this company from the ground up, and what I've seen is unacceptable." He detailed the mistreatment of lower-level employees, the lack of diversity in leadership, and the toxic culture that permeated the organization. The board listened intently, their expressions a mix of guilt and concern. Richard tried to interject, but Marcus silenced him with a sharp look. "You had your chance to lead, Richard. Now it's my turn." Under Marcus's leadership, Whitman Industries underwent a dramatic transformation. Employee policies were overhauled, diversity initiatives were implemented, and the company's culture shifted toward inclusion and respect. Richard, humbled by the experience, stepped down as CEO but remained on the board. He worked closely with Marcus, learning from his mistakes and striving to become a better leader. Over time, the company flourished, earning accolades for its progressive practices. While Marcus never forgot the day he was fired, he chose to focus on building a legacy of fairness and equality. In the end, Marcus's journey was a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of treating every individual with dignity, no matter their role. As the company thrived, Richard often reflected on the lessons learned from Marcus. He realized that true leadership is not about authority but about empathy and understanding. The transformation of Whitman Industries became a model for other companies, inspiring a new generation of leaders to prioritize the well-being of their employees. Share your thoughts on this story in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more updates on this story and more.